This video is meant to be an introduction to the idea of veterinary medical ethics. Ethics are basically a chance for us to try to define what our standards of good behavior are within veterinary medicine. Ethics can come from a variety of places. I'm going to start with the most basic listing of ethics that veterinarians follow, and that's this veterinarian's oath here. I'm going to read it. I'm not going to read most of the things here today, but I'm going to read this through and just kind of summarize the different parts. Being admitted to the profession of veterinary medicine, I solemnly swear to use my scientific knowledge and skills for the benefit of society through the protection of animal health and welfare, the prevention and relief of animal suffering, the conservation of animal resources, the promotion of public health, and the advancement of medical knowledge. I will practice my profession conscientiously, with dignity, and in keeping with the principles of veterinary medical ethics. I accept as a lifelong obligation the continual improvement of my professional knowledge and competence. This is an oath that's recited at graduation and often the white coat ceremony, which happens right before graduation. And it very basically sets out the beginning of ethical standards for veterinarians. So the first section, the whole first paragraph, really focuses on what is our purpose, what are we intending to do. And you'll notice that we are working for the good of animals, also the good of humans, and also the advancement of medical knowledge, so the good of science. The second part addresses how we will behave as veterinarians, professionally, with dignity, and remembering the principles of medical ethics. The third part of the oath emphasizes the importance of continuously improving our knowledge as we practice throughout our careers. This type of ethical statement is thought of as descriptive ethics, a simple statement similar to a mission statement that lays out the goals in simple and straightforward language. A more specific and detailed set of ethical principles, our official ethics, is set out by our professional governing body, the American Veterinary Medical Association, in what's known as their Principles of Veterinary Ethics. Another set of ethical standards are known as administrative standards. These are laws set out by the government and government agencies, such as the Drug Enforcement Agency. In most cases, it is ethical to follow legal guidelines. We are each all governed by our own personal set of ethics. These are known as normative ethics. And these can be shaped by the ethics set out by the governing bodies, by the legal authorities, and by our collective agreement. But they are also personal and individual to each of us. And when practicing veterinary medicine, you will need to reconcile all the levels of ethical standards in your daily life. Okay, so these are the AVMA Principles of Veterinary Ethics. This is just a short summary list, and in your materials for this week, you have an annotated list, which will go into more detail about each one. I just wanted to give you a quick overview and summary of the main points of each principle, just to give you a starting point. So, principle number 1 deals mostly with our motivations. We should be motivated in our actions by considerations for the animal, but also the owner, and public safety and public trust. So we are responsible for not only animals, but also humans. The second principle deals with the veterinarian-client-patient relationship, as well as having compassion and respect for both animals and humans. So emphasizing a veterinary client-patient relationship really shows that treating an animal requires a team. The vet must gather enough knowledge of the patient to make a medical judgment and then instruct the client on how to treat the animal. The client must agree to the recommendations and agree to pay to treat the animal. The vet must be available for follow-up or else designate someone else who can follow up, either an emergency facility or another vet within their practice. And then the vet should oversee the treatment and keep records of the patient and the whole interaction. one very important part of the veterinary patient-client relationship is that the vet must have performed a timely physical exam of the patient or be personally acquainted with how and where the patient is kept, usually by visiting the location that the animal is kept. Doing a physical exam is kind of obvious. Seeing the patient in person. Specifying a timely manner is not a very specific measurement, and that can sometimes lead to trouble. But being acquainted with and visiting the location of an animal sounds a little bit strange. The place that this really comes into play is with herd medicine. So a vet may not have examined an individual animal in a farmer's herd, but the veterinarian may have visited the farm, have an idea of how the herd is managed, and be able to make a judgment based on that knowledge. An exception to needing a valid veterinary client-patient relationship is an emergency. In an emergency, a vet can make a good faith effort to treat an animal in urgent need even before an owner can be found or consulted, and they will not be penalized. Back to the principles. The third principle has to do with our behavior in terms of professionalism and honesty. The fourth principle deals with legal issues and the law. It points out that not only must we respect the law, but we also may have a duty to influence the law within our veterinary career. The fifth principle reminds us to respect the people that we work with every day, as well as any sensitive information that we may learn. The sixth principle reminds us that we need to be open to continuing our education, always learning even beyond school, and being able to consult with or refer to other veterinarians when necessary. The seventh principle reminds us that we as veterinarians are free to choose who we practice on, who we practice with, and where and under what conditions we practice medicine. The eighth principle reminds us that it is important for us to consider the betterment of public health in our medicine. And the ninth principle reminds us that discrimination in any form is not acceptable in a professional setting. Please read the articles linked to on the discussion assignment page for more details before posting your discussion videos on the VoiceThread.